안녕하세요. For this online session, I will be discussing the human rights and democracy struggles of the Filipino Youthniverse. It's a Youthniverse because Filipino youth are huge fans of the Miss Universe pageant. They are also a huge sample of the Filipino population, around 30%. Hence, it is no doubt that their passionate voices, robust efforts in mobilizing, and heightened presence on social media platforms pose a threat to the current regime of President Rodrigo Duterte. In my observation, the Filipino youth face 5 struggles in getting their voices heard and asserting their rights. The youth are underrepresented in the legislative branch of the government. The lone representative of the youth sector, Kabataan Youth Party List, faces challenges in raising youth concerns as they are surrounded by a supermajority in the Congress. On another hand, there is another youth group vying for the power in the lower house, the right-wing Duterte Youth Party List. It is the exact opposite of Kabataan Party List. It is right-wing and its nominees were selected because they were close with Duterte and his allies. Well, I will discuss this in detail later. One of Duterte's promises was to pattern his cabinet on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's inclusive, youthful, and gender-balanced cabinet in Canada. But Duterte resorted to giving supporters positions in the government and thus failed to appoint a genuine youth representative to the National Youth Commission. NYC is a constitutional agency mandated to represent the Filipino youth in the executive branch. Duterte's basis in selecting heads of government agencies was their loyalty and support to his rule, a facet of the country's political history of cronyism and political patronage. Ever since, youth groups and human rights activists believe that NYC doesn't act upon pressing issues affecting the Filipino youth. There are 3 Duterte supporters who served as NYC chairperson. The first one from your right is Ice Segura, the second one is Ronald Cardema, and the incumbent one is Ryan Enriquez. Segura, the first one, and his partner were staunch supporters of Duterte during the elections. Ice's partner is the daughter of one of Duterte's cronies and was given a position in the cabinet. Ice resigned in 2018. The second one, Ronald, he made controversial pronouncements during his stint as NYC chairperson. He requested Duterte to revoke the scholarships of student activists from state colleges and universities. His stint as NYC ended when he attempted to jump ship to the lower house. When the Duterte Youth Group scored a seat in the House in May 2019, he filed a petition to substitute his wife, who was then the party's nominee. However, this was illegal because he was 33 years old at that time. Only individuals aged 30 years old and below are allowed to represent the youth sector in the lower house. The current chairperson, Ryan Enriquez, isn't a promising youth leader either. In one interview, he suggested that teenage girls and boys must be segregated in schools to stop the spread of HIV/AIDS. And teenage pregnancy. Well, again, they were appointed because of political patronage. The first thing that employers look for in job applications is your resume and CV, right? But in the Philippine government, meritocracy, it's not a big factor in the appointment of individuals in government positions. The Sangguniang Kabataan Youth Council polls at the village level have been postponed 3 times since 2016, the most number of postponements by any administration. Again, this is an issue of youth representation and governance. The government's efforts to delay village youth elections proves that promoting youth leadership and even respecting their right to elect and be elected has been downplayed over the past few years. The government has recognized the importance of student movements but at the same time have been arresting left-wing student activists. Last year, Duterte signed an order declaring November 17 as national holiday to recognize the impact of student activism in Philippine democracy. This is in conjunction with International Students' Day. Ironically, 1 month later, Duterte signed Executive Order 70, which is now used to target activists and left-wing organizations. Lastly, this government continues to evoke the concept of parent-style discipline in his platforms. Since he came to power, Duterte has hammered traditional disciplining approaches to addressing issues affecting the youth. This was evidenced when he certified Senate Bill 2232, which required grade 11 and 12 students to undergo the Reserve Officers Training Program, or ROTC. Duterte's desire to push mandatory ROTC is convoluting and ironic when he himself skipped ROTC training because he doesn't want to be shouted at. To avail of the ROTC exemption, Duterte tricked the military registrar by submitting medical documents of a tuberculosis-infected patient written under his name. So imagine if Duterte happens to submit medical documents of someone positive for COVID-19. Because of this, youth groups have lamented this proposal for mandatory ROTC, citing previous cases of campus hazing and costly military uniforms. There are flourishing social media platforms with youth amplifying their grievances against Duterte, incumbent politicians and their lackeys. The hashtag #OustDuterte trended on Twitter and Facebook after young Filipinos were dissatisfied with the government's lackluster efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19. However, the possibility of ousting Duterte is difficult. The president enjoys a high trust and approval rating, and again, there's a supermajority in the lower house. Nevertheless, political participation among the youth has bolstered under the incumbent government. As long as inefficient governance, cronyism, inconsistent rhetoric, and disregard for the rule of law and due legal process thrives, the Filipino youth will be an ubiquitous online and offline force Duterte has to deal with before he steps down in 2022. Kansanida, thank you.